In a world that is robbing dudes of their dudeness, three normal, everyday, middle-aged dudes are taking a stand for dudes everywhere. Join us as we talk about life as a dude in today's world.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the Dudefinity Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to all things dude. My name is Sterling, and joining me as always, the only man to moonwalk on the moon, Jordan.
I don't even think I've moonwalked on Earth, bro. But no, man, I'm glad to be here. This is gonna be fun. This one's gonna be a doozy today, man. There is lots to talk about.
Lots to talk about.
Sports world's gonna dominate some of it. Just gonna tell you now. So, hey, in the interest of time, let's dive in.
Okay. All right. So you got some things to say about the NFL MVP conversation. Why don't you go ahead and take it away, brother?
I'm going to start with Dan Orlovsky. Dan Orlovsky, I hope you're listening. You are a clown. And don't you ever talk over Mina like that again. It was sexist, it was up, and it was wrong. I don't appreciate it. She gave you facts, and you didn't like that a woman was spitting football facts to a guy that used to play football and couldn't spew them back. That was wrong. You wouldn't let Ryan talk, and all because Ryan was going to tell you that it is facts that Drake May and Matthew Stafford played the same opponents six times this year, and Drake May's numbers were far better. But yet, in one game against the Buffalo Bills, you're basically saying that he deserves the MVP because the only defense that we played that was a top 15 was the Buffalo Bills. Come on, man. I don't know, man. I'm fired up. I sent you that video. It was wrong. I mean, I do think Matthew Stafford's going to win the MVP. I do. I've told you that for weeks. He's 37. Drake May's 23. I think there's going to be a little bit of a longevity issue there, where who's got longer to do it, But I don't care about Drake winning the MVP, and neither does Drake. You know what we care about in New England? The Super Bowl MVP, baby, and Drake May is going to hang it up on Sunday. But Dan Orlovsky, oh, dude, fired up. I'm tired of the Patriots hate, Sterl. This is why I'm so fired up. They can't do it. They're not this. They're the underdog. The Seahawks are this great juggernaut. By the way, this week there was this FU to the – it was me. I was smacking my hands. There's this FU to the Patriot organization as a whole. I mean, dude, Jimmy Johnson, rightfully so, Bill Cowher, rightfully so, are in the Hall of Fame. Two names that come to mind as coaches. Bill Belichick? Not in the Hall of Fame? First ballot? Then Robert Kraft getting on? Then Tom Brady on the Pats this week? And thank God he's been called out by everybody that played with him. And, Brady comes up to New England, gets his statue unveiled, and has the nerve to say, oh, I'm a Patriot for life, but then won't come out and root for the Patriots in the Super Bowl? I'm sorry, man. It's wrong. I love Tom. I think he's great, but good on every teammate that Tom had for blasting his ass for it. I'm done. Mm-hmm. I'm just tired of the Patriots hate. The Seahawks are screwed. We are a situational football team. You want to score 40, we'll score 40. You want to score 10, we'll score 10. But you know what? If we win by one at this time of the year, does not matter, because guess what, buddy? We take the banner, we take the trophy.
So I'm done. So I watched that clip, and I mean, the reality is that if we're just going by just ability to formulate a efficient argument, Mina did way better. It wasn't even close. I mean, you got to look at just you kind of always expect a little bit of New England hate when it comes to sports. It's just the way it is.
City of champs, baby.
City of champs. So you just kind of expect it. But I feel like these last couple of weeks have been doozies. I mean, you've got Belichick, Kraft, all of the sports pundits saying that New England doesn't stand a chance, et cetera, et cetera. And does it get old? Sure, it does get old. We've experienced it for years, right up until Boston won that last title. It's one of those things that it's just part of the landscape, I think, of sports media in general. But you know what? You can either be loved or respected. Which do you want? I'd rather be respected.
I don't
You
think Dan
know,
Orlovsky's respected now, in my opinion. I lost all respect for him just listening how he talked to Mina. I hope he doesn't talk to his wife that way. Good God. I hope he can formulate better opinions than, oh, they played a top 12 defense once. Mina gave him facts and he couldn't present them. And
I
I
was
guess he's just kind of the culmination of like the Patriots hate for me because, I mean, come on, man. Like, don't hate us. Don't hate this version of the Patriots because you got sick of seeing the old version of the Patriots for 25 years. That's not
yeah,
this version's fault.
I don't think you're gonna get that. Like I say, when I say loved or respected, it's one of those things that
But there is no
you
respect when Kraft doesn't get in, Belichick doesn't get in,
no,
Brady
that's a
doesn't
lack of
respect him.
love.
That's a
That's a
lack of
lack of
respect
love.
too.
That's a lack of love. Yeah, respect is shown. It's the copium that they're gonna lose. It's the fact that people just flat out don't want to see them win. That's because you win. That's a lack of love. It's a lack of it's because they don't like them, and that's fine. I could deal with that. I'd rather have titles and have people not like us
But
than the
yeah,
other way around.
I'm good with it. I just didn't like Dan's argument with Mina and the way that he was
No.
like talking over Ryan and treating her like. Listen, I'm used to loudmouths. Like I'm used to Stephen A. I think Stephen A. Love him or hate him, 50% of the time he's all right. You know what I mean? 50% of the time I hate him. He's doing his job. But Dan Orlovsky to just flat out not have facts and then talk over Ryan and just kind of try to bulldoze Mina and say that he was given facts. I don't know, man. I thought he should be ashamed of how he handled himself in that, personally.
You're not wrong. I agree with you. I thought the clip was. I thought he didn't do himself a service in the way that he handled that particular discussion.
If he had real facts, I could get behind it, but there was no real facts.
Well, he continuously pointed to the same weak argument,
Yeah.
but didn't acknowledge or even address her argument. So,
Part of the debate is being able to accept the other side's point and then counterpoint it. You know what I mean? Like I just didn't understand that.
He didn't give a real counterpoint or invalidate
He just
her
didn't show her
argument.
respect, man. But I don't like Dan Orlovsky as a whole anyway. Like I haven't liked some of his takes to begin with, But I don't know. That one pissed me off.
I could
But
tell.
I was also fired up. I'm also fired up because it's the NBA trade deadline, man, and there's a lot going on there, and I'm excited. I mean, dude, you and I didn't think anything was gonna happen about 4 days ago, and then it just started.
I mean, some things are going to happen. I will admit that there were bigger moves than I expected to see.
And the day's not done.
It's true. The day isn't done, but I also think that there were a lot of moves that, while on paper look big, I think in the grand scheme of things are pretty irrelevant. Like AD trade Young to the Wizards. I mean, what was that? That's not doing anything other than sending Trae Young.
All that is an old junkyard where players go to die.
Yeah, I mean that's not moving the needle for the Wizards. I don't really ever understand unless they have just full on accepted that they cannot draft worth a and so they're like, well, we'll just get some old dudes who could play and see if we can put some.
The trade deadline, though, the reason why I thought the market was going to be held up was this Giannis stuff.
Yes.
And Giannis, and a lot of times coming into trade deadlines, there's that one domino, or in free agencies, there's that one domino, and then everything falls. But I mean, the JJJ and the Harden thing happened. And got us started, and it was kind of like Giannis be damned. Like if he goes, he goes. If he doesn't, he doesn't. And I think the Warriors decided that it wasn't worth giving up something for somebody who most likely isn't going to resign to play with a 38-year-old Curry.
I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think that if I had to put a wager in, I think that Milwaukee wanted more than what Golden State had put on the table.
Maybe
they only have so much to give. So you've got two schools of thought, and we've talked about this. My thought that I think to get the most for Giannis, you had to do it this season because he is so vocal about where he wants to be.
Yeah.
That a team's not going to pull a Toronto and rent him for one season and then leverage their entire future.
Well, see, that's why I think the Warriors decided not to do that in the end. I think ultimately they were willing to give him what they wanted, but they couldn't get Giannis to commit long term to them, I think, because of an aging Curry. And here's why I think so. And I think it's evidence because now all of a sudden they decided they're going to shed a bunch of salary. What did they do? What was the one move they did? They traded Kuminga and Buddy Hield for Kristaps Porzingis, who barely plays, but he's a $30 million expiring contract. And if he does play and he hits and he plays well in sparing minutes, guess what? Great. You've done well for yourself. But at the end of the day, you're losing salary rather than buying it because I think that they're assessing their landscape and they're fully aware that unless they get another young star this offseason to bring there to draw players in, like free agents in, Curry's not drawing you in anymore, man. He's just not.
I think there's something to that, but I also think that, if you pick up Giannis with a year and a half left on his contract, season and a half, you're more willing to leverage some of those draft picks for two chances at another title, right? Because at the end of the day, while Steph Curry is kind of coming towards the end of his career, he's still hyper effective player.
I know. I'm not saying he's not. I'm just do you want to invest your entire future in a situation like that?
Depends.
You know what I mean? I don't know.
As you and I both know, there's never any guarantees as far in sports in general in winning a title.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. Here's my guarantee right now. The New England Patriots are going to beat the Seahawks on Sunday. There's my guarantee.
I feel like just reading the room, anybody would know that's what you think.
You think so? Do I come across?
I feel like it's not. Yeah, you're not real inconspicuous about it, but that's fine.
Subtlety was never my strong suit, man.
So let's talk through some of these trades for a little bit and just. I'd like to start with Nikola Vucevic and a second round pick for Anthony Simons and a second round pick. Let's start with the Homer stuff and get that out of the way.
Well, there's more stuff to that, So I did a deep dive on that, read behind the scenes a little bit. So here's the deal. So we had a trade exception that was going to expire at the end of the year. Correct. We actually traded our trade exception for Vucevic. Then we traded Simons for the draft picks and the money matches. And so now we've got another $27 million trade exception. So we basically moved it, you know what I mean? We basically kind of swapped it. The semantics of it are kind of crazy in my head. It's hard to figure out. But basically the trade exception was what got us Vucevic. And then we flipped them Simons in that draft pick trade and the trade exception. Because the Bulls are under the salary cap. You can't do that with a team that's above the salary cap.
Above the salary cap.
Yeah.
And we've dropped, I think, $220 million of luxury tax, which is, I think we dropped from $500 million in luxury tax to $220 million in luxury tax.
Let me point something out to you about the Celtics. I just want to say something because we're talking the money right now.
Sure.
So last night we played the Rockets, a loaded up Rockets team. We dog walked them, without Jaylen Brown. Do you know that our payroll last night was $34 million and we beat the snot out of the juggernaut that is supposedly the Houston Rockets? Because Peyton Pritchard came off the bench. Well, and that is his best hole, man. I mean,
I agree with you.
He's a burner.
You and I.
He's a burner. Shireman killed it, in that starting lineup. But I'm not a big Shireman guy. You know that. He's got to earn his spot. Well, I was kind of hoping that he played good, and then they traded him today.
Here's the thing with Boston. Again, I think it comes down to coaching. I think it's continuity.
Here we go with this Joe Mazzulla.
I'm just saying, they if there is one thing that you don't spend that much time with Brad.
Okay, they've been running plays. I've seen a lot more plays the last 2 months. Okay, for the first time ever. I'll give it to you. Joe Mazzulla is actually developing into a good coach. I will say.
My real point is that you don't spend that. What was the biggest thing with Brad Stevens? He got the most out of. He put players in positions to succeed. You think about Joe Crowder.
Jay Crowder.
Jay Crowder.
Who the hell is Joe Crowder?
I was thinking about Joe Mazzulla. But Jay Crowder, think about how good he was in the playoffs with Boston. And then he moved Marcus Morris. How many of these guys go other places and you're like, oh, They were
Isaiah
trash.
Thomas.
In his defense,
IT4, Isaiah
it-
Thomas.
in his defense, that poor guy just needed a hip. So, like,
But the
he
dude
needed
was
a hip
he was
replacement.
a hooper.
He was.
No, I hear you, man. It is coaching, but no. So going back to that though, I'm really excited for Vucevic, and I'm really excited because he's going to stretch the floor. The double big lineup
Yep.
looks really interesting with Tatum back. And here's the thing: because of minutes staggering, I was doing some math on it. Let me grab my phone real quick. I want to kind of share with you some thoughts I had about this staggering now that they're there. I get a little bit crazy about this stuff, so.
Yeah, I've noticed. It's like your autistic superpower.
It is, but I'm not gonna do it and not know what's going on, right? So, I was sending this for lineups. Hang on. All right, here we go. So DW's playoff average is 38 minutes a night the last 2 years. Hauser, 20 minutes. We've never played him more than 20 minutes in the playoffs, just so you know. Jalen, 38 minutes, playoff average.
Playoff average, yeah.
Tatum, 28 minutes. He can't be a 40-minute player when he comes back. This is me saying what I'm thinking is going to happen as we hit the playoffs. He can't be a 40-minute. And I think he'll be closer to 25 minutes a night, to be honest with you.
So you've come to the other. So you've come to the other side, thinking that he is gonna.
If he does come back, this is what I think is going to happen. I do.
Okay.
I mean,
So
this is a what if, but I mean, we've been holding
gotcha.
the roster spot open all season. I can't help but think that, and we didn't file for an injured player exception. So I think that they know he's coming back. It's just a matter of when.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
Kata, 28 minutes, dude, our bigs, I don't know if you know this, they never cross the 30-minute mark. They never do. Okay. Then bench rotation, it's going to be Peyton Pritchard. He's going to play 30 minutes off the bench. Everybody knows that. He's just too much of a change of pace guard. He's going to be your sixth man. Vucevic, probably going to play 28 minutes. This is assuming that Kata starts and Vuce comes off the bench. Okay.
Which I think is probably pretty likely. Yeah.
I think so. So I think it's pretty balanced. I mean, if you look at it, it's DW, PP, it's Jalen, like you can actually make some arguments there. So I love our ability in a double big lineup, man, because here's the thing. In that double big lineup, we have, if Tatum's back, we now have Derek White, we now have Jaylen Brown playing the 2, Tatum at the 3, Vucevic playing the stretch big, and Kata is the rim runner in that double big lineup. And I'm telling you, man, there's so many different offensive sets, and the way that they're running plays this year versus just letting Tatum and Brown create like they have the last couple of years and then, get a shot to somebody off ball. I think there's a lot to be said for how they could use those guys because Vucevic is an elite passing big man, really. Like,
well, and he has a post game that Kata doesn't have. So, you can dump it into him. And especially one of the big things that I like about Vucevic is because he can do something that Kristaps did. So on those high screen and rolls, you can force that switch, which, not as much as last year, but Boston still likes to mismatch hunt. And now you've created 2 mismatches with a guy that has the ability to pass out of the post.
Well, and then just imagine him doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And Kata rim running.
Yeah. I think there is his offensive ability is because, really, when you think about it, you're not getting a great defender out of
good team defender. That's about it.
He's a good team defender. He's a big body. He could clog up the paint some. He's not going to get you a ton of block shots. He's not that kind of a big, but he gives you a much more well-rounded offense. He gives you another 3-point shooter at another position. And you're not losing anything in terms of your defensive ability that as far as Anthony Simons goes. So right. I think there's a lot of upside here.
Well, here's the other thing.
Vucevic,
the salary was 21.5 for both players expiring. So really, at the end of the day, you created a trade exception to use next year, but also you're for the same money, you're getting a position of need versus a position of wealth.
I think it's a great move on Boston's part.
I do.
So let's talk about Trae Young and Anthony
Boucher
Davis.
just got traded.
Oh, in real time.
Boucher just got traded. Not that he was relevant, but Boucher got traded. No details. Utah under cap, could be trade exception. So we traded him to Utah. If so, we'd be $2.3 million from tax line. Okay. It's coming in. My sources are letting me know right now.
Yeah,
There's something coming in.
absolutely.
I'll let you know. No, seriously, the sources are coming in. Shout out to CP, baby. But no, I'm with you. So Anthony Davis and Trae Young.
And Trae Young. So we've talked about Trae Young in the past and just how his numbers, game style, his skill set does not inherently translate to winning. And Anthony Davis is essentially never available. So what do you think the Wizards' plan here is? Because on paper, I don't know if there is one.
I wonder flying a bus or driving a bus full of people. Like, they got no idea what they're doing. I mean, they got Andre Sarr there. They've got a couple of like younger guys. And then they go and they get Trae Young, who you basically essentially just said, we don't want to win because Trae Young's stats do not equate to winning. He's not available most of the time. Best ability is availability. You know what they just became? In my opinion, they became another poor man's version of the 76ers when Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons were there.
Interesting.
Or a poor man's version of the Clippers before Kawhi and Paul George were there, before Kawhi started playing again. They have a lot of money tied up in two guys that just don't play enough. And let's face it, Anthony Davis would have never have won a championship without LeBron James.
No.
Wouldn't have?
So let me ask you this. So this was kind of my thought, and I think you know more about, I haven't had the opportunity or the deep desire to look into it. But my gathering was that they traded away this coming first-round pick, if I'm not wrong, in a draft class that by deep. All rights is loaded.
Yeah.
So did they just straight up decide that they
class compared to 03, 04?
Yeah.
You've got Melo,
you've got Boozer's kid. You've just got
the Boozer boys. You've got there's depth all through it, man.
So does this mean that the Wizards have just flat out decided that they're so trash at drafting players that they've given up? I don't really understand the thought process.
They just missed John Wall a whole lot, so they went and traded for a guy that's just as injured as he is. I don't know. There is no thought process. You know what I mean? Unless they swing Trae and AD like today, like what's the thought process? Leverage in the offseason? Like, what are they going to do? Who are they going to leverage? They had the worst record in basketball. They might as well just kept it.
Yeah, that's the thing I don't quite understand. You've got this opportunity that where you're as near as can be guaranteed a early lottery pick in a stacked draft class.
Probably the highest percentage out of anybody to get it.
Right. And so why trade that for these two players? It's, I get that the East is wide open, but I don't feel like this moves the needle for them to make a playoff run.
You think it's an asses in the seats kind of thing?
I mean, it certainly could be. It could.
Why would I want to come watch those guys get hurt? Anthony Davis falls and he's out for 6 months.
Right. I don't really understand it.
No, I saw today too. So one thing I wanted to ask you about, this was interesting. So Zubac is very close to being traded to the Pacers right now. There's a lot of negotiation going on there. Chef was talking about it. Shams was talking about it. And I just wonder, do you think that Harden trade materialized so quickly that when they said no and rebuffed Simons, who is a guy that they have wanted, when they rebuffed the Simons offering for Zubac, and do you think that they were intent on keeping both Kawhi and Harden through the year at that point? But now that that Harden didn't ask out, but they indicated he wanted a longer contract and they knew they couldn't keep him. You know what I mean? So if that's the case,
you kind of have to do something with him.
Right. So now I feel like Zubac, like that trade materialized so quickly that Zubac wasn't available before Harden was traded. And so then I go back to, do they feel like they missed out on Simons? Or are they, because the guy that they're talking about is Nesmith, which I could see Aaron Nesmith in Clipperland. Makes perfect sense. And Zubac would definitely bring a presence in the paint for the Pacers that they desperately need since Miles Turner left. But I also wonder if we kind of dodged a bullet. And here's why. Because it's a redundant skill set to Keita. Now we've got our stretch big versus our banger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, Zubac's a better rebounder. He's a better shot blocker. I mean,
But for the way we play offense, I feel like we've already got our banger, and it would have been a redundant skill set that way. Whereas
Maybe.
Zubac is our stretch big. I hate to say this, but Zubac on the Boston Celtics as a third or fourth option could very well be
Vucevic?
somewhat like, what did I say? Zubac?
Zubac.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm
Vucevic.
just trying to make
Yeah, sorry, man. So, I'm sorry, all these Eastern European block names are killing me today. But I do think that Vuce could be. He's played 73 games a season each year the last 5 years. Okay. I think some of it was a longevity play. I think, he's healthy. He's going to be around for the playoff run. I think he could, and I hate saying this, he could be that guy that steps into a 30-foot three for us like Porzingis did.
So
He doesn't move as fast as Porzingis.
No.
But he could absolutely play very similarly, like almost like a hybrid Al versus Porzingis.
So I don't know if you know this, but his highest percentage three-pointer is as the trailer in the at the top of the key. He shoots almost 40%.
Exactly what Porzingis was doing all the time.
Okay, so we've discussed
moving on.
those
Enough
ones.
with our
Let's
homers.
Triple J, the man that I just want to point out, you said would be a Celtic.
Yeah.
by the end of the trade deadline.
I mean, I wasn't the only one who thought it, but nobody expected Danny Ainge to come out and just give up the everything. And so I was
flabbergasted at the haul that Memphis.
So I started thinking about
him.
Danny Ainge, and we know Danny Ainge well, and the way he drafts, and the way that he stashing drafts, and the way that he, never wants to lose in a trade. I mean, hell, he fleeced the Nets for 4 first-round draft picks, and that became Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. I'm not mad at Danny in any way, okay?
No.
We gave him a broke-down Pierce and a broke-down Garnett. I mean, I love those guys, but they did the best thing for the franchise at that time. But I thought on the surface, when I started looking at it, I'm like, man, this trade is terrible. Danny just gave up so much. It's too heavy on the picks. But then you start to peel it back and you think about where those picks are. One of them's in 2030, one's next year. They're picks that are owned by teams that are like spread across the potential, like one lottery pick versus back end picks, in the first round. And so those 4 picks really become like 2 when you start to think about how the percentage of hitting of an NBA player and everything else. So then I started to think about the Utah Jazz roster. And I'm going to dare say that the Utah Jazz are going to be a really good team very soon. I mean, they got that Keontae George or whatever his name is playing very good. They just drafted Ace Bailey. I mean, Keontae George is playing like an all-star. Ace Bailey's playing well.
He's up and down, but he's got the same thing that most college players have when they come into the league.
I think he could have
struggle with the
stayed in
speed
college
and they
another
struggle.
year.
I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but it's the difference in the speed of the game compared to college and the volume of games that you play compared to college.
Well, Cooper Flag seems to have figured it out the last month and a half. So we'll talk about that in a minute.
I will, yeah. He seems to be playing all right. He seems to have turned a bit of a corner.
Though, is a good player. Ace Bailey's a good player. You've got Filipowski coming off the bench playing well for them. You've got JJJ, who's an elite defender. You still have John Collins in Utah, so they're probably looking to either trade him or Walker Kessler. And by the way, let's not forget their unicorn. Unicorn, Lauri Markkanen.
So from the sounds of things, they want to hang on to Kessler.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what I've seen in reports. Whether that's actually the case,
Collins is
going
to move. Collins is most likely the one to be moved. Yeah,
that would be my assumption. Yeah,
but I mean, right? I mean, that's a pretty good-looking little squad that Danny's built out there. And quite frankly, you're trying to win if you're Danny Ainge, because let's face it, Danny Ainge ain't going to be in basketball in 5 years. He doesn't even, you know what I mean? Like, not that he's going to be fired, but why? He's going to retire, man. He's going to move on. He's going to, he's going to be enjoying games. I just don't see him, like, he doesn't care about that mortgage future, so to speak, because the mortgage future isn't really there. And if you get Ace Bailey, Keontae George, and JJ, all in their prime and similar times, kind of helps. But
assuming
so let's go to Coop real quick.
All right, let's go to Coop.
Let's go to Coop and the Mavs. So the other side of that AD trade is Dallas. Okay, Chris Middleton, has now gone to Dallas. You know, they gave up Dante Exum, which I think Dante Exum is a great role player. He's not a starter, but he's a
Yes.
good role player. You know what I mean? He's a D and 3, in my opinion. They also I forget who else they gave up in that trade, but I didn't understand. So I think prediction out of that trade, Klay Thompson is probably going to get traded today, would be my guess. And here's why. Because why would you get Middleton if you've already been looking to trade Klay? You know, they've been having conversations. I wouldn't be surprised if Kyrie's gone. You got an 18-year-old Cooper Flag out here dropping the NBA. I mean, yes, the Mavericks are losing, but Cooper is not. Like, Cooper is doing everything. I mean, he basically went up against Jaylen Brown and the Celtics the other night and had 36
great
points,
game.
9 rebounds, and 10 assists. Like, he balled out against his favorite childhood team. Like, you know what I mean? He's just, but he's still 5 years away. As crazy as that sounds, like 3 to 5
Yes.
years away from that prime, that like where you're going to be the peak of your NBA career. And maybe he hits it earlier, but anomalies happen. But I also don't think that that's necessarily the case. I think in their head, they're going, we got a 5-year window before, so we need to start obtaining assets.
Start building now.
Right.
And that was
To
kind
hit
of
with
the,
them.
I don't
Like,
know
go
as
get your
though,
running mate. Like, go get your running mate.
exactly. And so that Wizards pick is basically guaranteed to be a high lottery pick. I feel like Dallas that's exactly what Dallas is trying to do. They're trying to pull.
So does an injured Kyrie move today? I kind of think he could.
I think the problem with the Kyrie and the Klay Thompson thing is not so much they're trying to fill holes this year.
Yeah.
I think it's that you've got to find somebody to be a trade partner. So you need somebody who's interested in an injured Kyrie Irving. You need somebody who's interested in a Klay Thompson that has something that you want in exchange. I think that's going to be a little hard to come by.
Well, here's something I don't understand about that.
Sure.
Okay, the Klay thing. So, Clay's trying to play basketball. He's trying to go compete. He's trying to possibly not just play in the playoffs and have a good season, maybe chase title, whatever. Okay. So I start to think about teams. And then I start to think about what the Warriors just gave up for Porzingis. They gave up a bag of donuts and a player that basically grades out as a not an NBA starter anymore, Buddy Hield. Okay. To them, they gave away a bag of donuts because Kuminga didn't have any value. They didn't like him. It wasn't working out for them with Kuminga. Okay. Why didn't the Warriors call the Mavericks and take Klay back for Kuminga? Would have been an easy swap. It would have been, you know, Clay's natural. He runs alongside those guys. He gives you another defender. He gives you another shooter. He stretches the floor. I don't understand why Kuminga and Buddy Hield didn't go for like Klay Thompson and maybe Daniel Gafford.
I think the reason is that the Warriors are not in a position where they are not trying to win titles. The upside of a Tingus Pingus is higher than Daniel Gafford and
I
Klay
just want to
Thompson.
point out that you and a friend of ours, when we met at a brewery in New England, when we were talking, I said, I think now that after we won that Celtics title, if you remember, I said, now's the time we got to trade him. And what did you tell me? No, that's a terrible idea. And we traded him for a busted minivan in Gorgie Dieng or Niang or however you say his name. When at the end of that season, when we won the title, if we would have traded him, he had a much higher value.
Listen,
I'm just saying, man, and you guys gave me so much crap. They're not going to trade him. They want him. He's amazing. He's going to be there.
Listen, what I said was
that Tingus Pingus wasn't getting traded.
Was I right?
He ended up getting traded eventually, but he got traded way less value. I told you. What did I tell you, though? I said he's going to be on the backside of 30, and they're going to trade him for nothing if they wait.
But the point is that you have to you have to play the cards that you're dealt. You won a title the year before. By all rights, you should have been able to go out and do something similar. Now that didn't happen, but it wasn't like the East got incredibly better, that wasn't what happened. You took a flyer on Tingus Pingus in the first place that he would be healthy enough to play, right? I mean, the previous year was the first year he'd ever played more than like 65 games.
Run what you brung, I know, but I hear you.
You know,
But I'm just pointing out that I was right that a player on the backside of 30 probably should have traded him then. I also said that we should have traded Drew Holiday because we're going to end up having to trade him anyway. And then we traded him for Anthony Simons that now has turned into Vucevic, I guess, which isn't bad. So I'm not mad about that, but I'm just saying, like, after the championship, both those guys fell off the next year, and you probably could have surrounded or gotten back a better return.
So here's what I'm going to say.
The haul would have been better. The haul would have been better.
Here's what I'm going to say, though. You know, you
don't know what you don't know. I know.
You've got the benefit of hindsight. Think about it this way: what would have been worse, trading them?
But I was foresighting it then. It might be hindsight now. But either way, you had to move on from either one of those guys because of money. We did know that. We knew that they were going to be on the backside of 30. We knew that they were going to be players.
Which thing would you have liked
showcase them when is their value going to be highest?
It's not just about value. It's not just about value. It's about perception. So I want you to think about the reverse of that scenario. So say that we had traded them and then didn't win a title when we had won the previous year with that team.
Well, we weren't going to win one last year anyway because Tatum broke his damn leg or tore his Achilles.
There's no way to have known that. But if we had traded those guys and then not won a title, they would have strung Brad Stevens up by his ball sack.
It's Boston.
In front of the Samuel Adams Brewery.
It's Boston, man. I got news for you. It happens. Like, I love Brad. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, man, if I could see it sitting in my seat telling you across the table at a brewery that I am 100% certain they should probably do this now, not later, because of the return they'd get, I don't know why they didn't.
Even a broken clock is right twice a day.
24-21 Pats.
All right. So moving on from that, was there some other things that you wanted to discuss, if I remember correctly?
Oh, not really.
This morning.
Not really.
No.
Okay. We kind of hit what I wanted to hit on.
Okay. So in current events, I'm sure you've heard this, but the Epstein files have been released.
And CNN had to apologize to Donald Trump.
Yeah, so there's a few things I wanted to bring up that I haven't seen a lot of talk about in those files. One of which was that, so apparently, one of Donald Trump's employees at Mar-a-Lago Resort
went to Epstein's.
Was a common occurrence, would go to Epstein's for, I believe it was like a spa treatment.
Yeah.
Was what this 18-year-old girl was doing. And he propositioned her. And according to the emails, Donald Trump was made aware of this and summariously removed Epstein from membership at the resort.
Yeah.
Huh. It almost sounds like
Donald Trump's been telling the truth all along.
What these are the files that were.
You know what I'm realizing about Trump? He's too much of a blowhard mouthpiece to lie. Like, I know that's crazy. He's just gonna shoot it straight to your face, and every time he says something, for the most part, it's come to fruition, has it not? Or
yes. So I
didn't collude with Russia. I didn't have a bad call with Zelensky. By the way, I'm not a pedophile. It's actually Clinton.
So I want to point out some other things that are in these files. I don't know if you've done any kind of diving into
a little bit. There's only one that really stood out to me really big, and I wanted to share it with you.
Go ahead.
Zohran Mamdani's mom was with Epstein in a lot of these photos, and Zohran is in these pictures too. Has he been? I'm just saying, man, it's kind of weird that he was like with these elitists for years.
You know,
I'm not so sure that he came out of nowhere.
Well, and that's a possibility. But I think we also, if we're going to say what we've said about Trump, we have to be willing to say it about other people. This guy would just.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, it seems like Epstein just existed in circles with influential people, and.
But how was Zohran Mamdani influential back then?
Well, his mom might have been. Mom was.
Anyway.
Mom was. So here's the other thing that I wanted to talk about that was in these. There is mentions of designer
Sterling.
babies.
Sterling.
Yeah, I'm right on there. Yeah. So
you enjoyed your time at the island, didn't you,
I
bud?
did. It
I
was
knew it.
it was
I
fantastic.
always knew it. I always knew
I
you
really enjoyed.
You like really old Mossad men.
Yeah, he well, listen, he makes a fantastic martini, that
I got you.
Epstein.
A real dirty martini, huh?
But so there's discussion of designer babies.
Yep.
Human cloning.
By the way, Mamdani is a designer baby.
So here's the thing.
You think I might be wrong, but I did read.
Well, so it's a lot of the discussion of these designer babies is what would come off as quite racist, frankly. An underage pregnancy with a stolen infant, and referring to the women at the island in terms of sharks, and one being referred to as a shrimp. Now,
how about the New York Giants owner getting taken down in this whole thing? Did you see that?
Well,
the co-owner,
I
Steve
did.
Tisch?
I want to. So essentially, Epstein and a gentleman who I forget his name, but he's currently is involved in the G8 and G20 heavily, holds a position there. Referred to, basically Epstein said that I'm here with my women in a fish tank, in an aquarium, I believe was the quote. And then they proceeded to discuss their preference for white sharks, and referred to one of them as a shrimp. And I kind of had to look that up. I wasn't sure what that meant. It would be what we would refer to, I think, as a butterface. And so there's a Spanish colloquialism where you would say she's a shrimp. She's fantastic if you take the head off. So not. So this is not looking great for anybody involved in this, and one of the people involved in this whole designer baby and then human cloning thing is one of the originators of Bitcoin. And there is talk in one of these emails that Jeffrey Epstein impregnated a underage girl, and what the hell's her name?
Bill Clinton.
Ghislaine Maxwell then proceeded to remove this child from the mother, and that child has not since been seen. So there is some
pretty serious stuff.
Also apparently Bill Gates.
Oh, dude, he's in that Mamdani picture. He's in that Mamdani picture.
Oh, listen, Bill Gates got an STD from a Russian prostitute and then proceeded to secretly medicate his wife for it. This is some bad shit, man.
Yeah, this isn't good. This isn't good. And you know what's crazy to me, and all of the most crazy thing, and I joke about the Clintons. But seriously, anybody who thinks that they're going to go and actually tell the truth at Congress, let's be real. They're going to plead the fifth. They're going to lie. They're going to do all these things. But good luck in all this, because here's the deal now. Because there's no hiding after all this came out. And I'm not so certain that the government wasn't waiting. Trump is a little spiteful. And after everything the Hillary campaign started with the Steele dossier and everything else that started this Russian collusion thing, and he used to be friends with Bill and Hillary. He danced with Hillary at Chelsea's wedding. Ivanka and Chelsea were friends. I think that Trump is I think they were waiting to release the Epstein files until the Clintons agreed to go testify before Congress, because I think they knew the evidence was so damning that they couldn't get out of it in public.
I mean, I'm going to throw this out there. Trump didn't feel like there was anything in there worth going after, at least on his end. And it seems like he was telling the 100% truth.
Yeah.
And, like I say, if there was anything in those files that were negative to Trump, you really think that the left have done everything in their power to get them released.
Right.
Just
I know.
saying.
I know. And it was all about just making it. It's what we talked about yesterday. That side of the aisle is they are everything they claim the other side to be. It's like this in
100%.
Minnesota right now, dude. Minnesota. They are stopping people, citizens are stopping people in neighborhoods as they drive through and won't lift a gate that's on sandbags, surrounded by sandbags, until they show them their ID and prove that they are not ICE. Tell me who the Nazis are now.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned this, because one of the things I wanted to bring up was a bit of an existential crisis I had last night. I was laying in bed and I was thinking to myself about the US dollar. I will bring this full circle for you, my friend, I promise. I was thinking to myself about the US dollar. I actually almost
lay in
brought
bed
one
and
down.
wonder if I'm hungry or forgot to do stuff. I don't think about the US dollar.
So I was thinking about the US dollar.
Cool.
And I was thinking about it in terms of its value, right? So it's been devaluing against the euro and that sort of thing. And that just kind of sent me on this thought process. If I am hungry, I can't eat it. If I'm thirsty, I can't drink it. If I'm cold, burning it isn't going to do a whole lot. Might keep my hands warm for a moment, but it's not going to keep me warm at night. It doesn't provide me with shelter. What it does do is allow me to purchase things, right? So we've talked about the social contract that when you live in a society, you agree to. So we as a society have agreed that this piece of paper has value, right? And then that's a social contract. It's an agreement. You could even go so far as to say it's a mass delusion, that we all agree that this piece of paper has value. And that got me to thinking about institutions. So really, this piece of paper has no value. There is an institution that we have all agreed we want to be part of. We all agree that we have faith in this institution of the US dollar, and we're going to go, and it provides us with convenience, right? It's much easier for me to hand you a bunch of money in exchange for your cow than it does for me to have to take my bundles of wheat, my bags of flour, and exchange them for that cow, right? That's why currency exists. It's easier to transport. That's the reality. But it's not gold currency, so it doesn't have inherent value. The value is in our trust in the institution, right? So this got me thinking about institutions in the United States and institutions in general. And
why do I feel like I'm going to have to be in a mental institution after I follow this all the way through?
So there's two thoughts that I had when it comes to institutions. We all have to kind of agree on things, right? We all have to be willing to have this mass delusion in these. I say mass delusion. But it kind of is a mass delusion.
Right.
It's acceptance, and it's the agreement that we're going to have faith in these institutions, right? We're going to have faith in the presidency.
That's it's
sure.
Faith. Yeah.
You have to agree to have faith in the institution of the presidency, in the Congress, the Senate, money in its monetary value, the federal government to do the things that it's supposed to do, right? We all just kind of have to agree that we're gonna live in the matrix a little bit.
Yeah.
And have faith in these institutions. Now, what happens when these institutions burn down? What happens?
Chaos.
What happens, right? Right.
Chaos.
Sure. Exactly. So chaos happens. We can see what happens when people lose faith in their institutions. And all you have to do is look at Iran. And what does that chaos bring? What did it bring? It brought the death of tens of thousands of people.
And Trump said there was a red line, and I'm not sure we're going to do something about it. So we'll see.
We'll see. But I think the broader picture is that when people lose faith in institutions, it creates chaos, and chaos brings two things.
Change.
You've got in one hand, you have change. You have the reshuffling of the power structure, right? I mean, I want you to think about what would happen if the dollar had zero value. Tomorrow we wake up, everybody in the country has now decided they no longer want to play this game anymore. They no longer want to be involved. The social contract is broken. The dollar has no actual value anymore. Where do you think the power would lie? Would it lie with the person who has a penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park in New York? Or would the power be with the fellow who has 1,000 acres in Nebraska and can grow food? So that chaos can reshuffle the structure of power, right? But at what cost? The cost would be mass death and genocide. 100%. That's what would happen. So I guess my thought the thought that I kind of mulled around my head is who is the better person? The one who agrees to continue to have the power in the institution at the risk of maintaining the status quo and possibly maintaining the status quo, ensuring that these institutions stay and that you don't get the death of thousands and thousands of people, or the one who wants to sow chaos. And I just kind of look at Minnesota and these protesters.
Well, it's controlled chaos.
Is it controlled?
It is.
I don't know if it's controlled chaos.
I think it's funded. I think it's controlled. I think it's organized, and I think people have bought into it. I think some of it has been.
I see what you're saying when you say controlled. It's instituted chaos. It's intentional chaos. I see what you're saying. I would agree with that. I think that the only thing that holds this country together is
the belief in the institution.
Is the willingness of the people to believe in the institution. And I worry that if that belief does not continue, the ensuing chaos is going to cause much more damage than the institutions ever did.
I hear everything you're saying, but it's the same thing I've said to you all along. How do you kill America from within?
100%.
We're going to eat ourselves, and we're already doing it.
The good news is, at least in my opinion, that there has been a shift to sanity. We're slowly making our way there. I don't think
FAFO is trickling in.
FAFO's trickling in. I think
you know what else has been a shift though too is a shift towards the institution of religion. You're seeing a lot more people turn towards church and the Lord and you know, you and I have talked about the moralistic societies throughout history have typically been more founded and driven by a belief.
Well, and I think there's, you know, I don't necessarily think it needs to be. If that's how we get there, then so be it.
I'm not saying it's why we're getting there. I'm just saying coincidentally, you're seeing a lot more shift to like centralist morals again. You know what I mean? And what the country was founded on, not, you know, because here's the thing, man. We survived for we're getting ready to celebrate our 250th anniversary. We survived with a democracy longer than any other government in history. And here's the thing about it. We didn't survive on it by trying to change everything that we've done. You know what I mean? Like like the Constitution exists, the Bill of Rights exists. That's for everybody who comes here legally. You know, it's our job as Americans to uphold that social contract that you and I talk about. And that's why I think there are forces at play outside of this country that have infiltrated our media, have infiltrated social media, that have targeted campaigns to, quite frankly, like, you know, and I don't mean this in a bad way when I say it, but it's the truth. Suburban middle-aged white women are seeing this stuff and just getting out the pitchforks, man. And it's insane, you know, and it's just, I just wish people would stop and think. Like, just stop.
I don't think it's, you know, we talk about, you know, the roles of gender, right? We talk about how, you know, traditional gender roles and how we communicate differently, and not one way is not necessarily better than the other. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that they're different.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing that makes women better, you know, fantastic caregivers, right? You know, if
they have a softer edge. They're altruistic.
You know, the thing that does that also makes them more reactive when they see things that stir their emotional center.
So I hear where you're going, but it brings up that video. Did you ever watch that Instagram video I sent you the other day where that Hispanic guy was talking and he's like, look, man, he's like, there ain't a white woman. He's like, white women stay home. Like, stop, like, fighting for us. We're not coming to save Karen when she gets arrested. So why are you out in the streets doing this for us?
Well,
and he was basically saying, come here legally, stop breaking laws, and then this wouldn't have to happen. But, you know, It was just an interesting
100%.
altruistic,
I think that, again, I think it's one of those things that they know how
slippery
to stir
slope.
emotion. They know how to stir people's emotions, and they know that an emotional reaction. I'll give you an example. When you look at Trump's current approval ratings, the things that he's approving, that people are approving of, and it was an advanced insider poll, but regardless, he had a 51% approval rating on the way he has been handling Minnesota.
Uh-huh.
So now I wonder whether that would have been the case when this all first started, because the first thing that people do is have an emotional response to input. The thing comes at them, and the first thing that happens is you get a gut reaction, right? It's your emotional center. Now, some people are better at going, okay, well, let me slow down
Let slow down and think through this.
and some people aren't. But as that, that adrenaline, that emotional response of it eventually subsides, and you start to see a clearer picture. When do people make the most mistakes? It's in the moment,
When they're
right?
yeah,
When they're
when they're
emotional and in the
fired
moment.
up and emotional. Well, like this, you know what I
100%.
thought was really interesting in the media this week is, when Alex Pretty died and was shot by ICE, that ICE officer, it was, oh, Trump's Nazis kill another one, and they're all over. Well, guess what? Narrative changed pretty quickly when they found out that Trump Nazi was Hispanic, and his last name was Hispanic, and he was from another country and came here legally. Now, all of a sudden, I haven't heard about Alex Pretty all week.
Yeah. Yeah, like I say, it is all to get an emotional response. And, I was discussing this with somebody. ICE is
By
not.
the way, did you give him the tap that I told you to? Because I know who you were talking to. Did you give him the tap that I told you to?
Oh, no, it wasn't actually that.
It wasn't?
That wasn't
Oh,
who I
okay.
was discussing.
I figured it was the Hobbit.
No. So I was discussing this with somebody actually that I work with. And
Okay.
one of the things I was bringing up, because I work with a lot of left-leaning people, and that's fine. They're wonderful people. But one of the things that I was bringing up was, well, they were saying, well, this should be handled better, ICE and DHS and Homeland Security. And I'm like, well, ICE is not trained to handle crowd control.
Law enforcement. No, that's not what they're here for.
That's
They're
law
here
enforcement's job. That's what local law enforcement is for. And if they really cared about the safety of those people protesting, they wouldn't be preventing local law enforcement from being involved and leaving it up to people who, this is not their job. It's not what they're trained for. They're trained to go and track down people who are here illegally, process them, and send them back to their country of origin. That's what their training is in. They don't get trained on crowd control. They don't get trained on management of a protest. That's not what their job is. So if
their job is to deport.
If the Democratic Party in that state truly wanted to ensure the safety of their populace, of their constituency,
they would have law enforcement helping.
100%.
They don't care. They don't care.
They don't care. They want to get an emotional response.
Mayor Frey, the Minnesota mayor, Mayor Frey, dude, I'm telling you, like, he's just like Brandon Johnson in Chicago. He's just like the guy in Baltimore. Who knows what's going to happen when this takes to New York, because it's coming. We know it's coming at some point, and it just the people that they are protecting keep them in power. It's all about the power that they get to keep. And it's just, I just have a hard time with, and really, quite frankly, if Tim Walz wanted to do something and be known for something on the way out the door, because he says he's done and he's not running for re-election and he doesn't want to be in politics anymore, because it ate him up and spit him out, you know what I mean? But it's because he wasn't honest. And he lied, and he did things that were fraudulent, and he cheated the system, and he said that he was at Tiananmen Square, and he said that he was in combat, and he said he was all these things, and he wasn't. And it's been proven time and time again that he has changed the story to fit a narrative, okay? And if he wanted to do something on the way out, he would sign an executive order in the state of Minnesota that says law enforcement needs to handle crowd control for this. If not, you know who's going to come handle it? Is a bunch of National Guard people that Donald Trump brings in.
Like I say, this is
they want gun control. They don't want violence. They don't want this. They don't want that. But yet they're the ones that aren't controlling the violence.
Well, I mean, listen, Alex
defund the police.
The reality with that is, when you
Loss of
go and
life
get
is
your
always tragic. Let me say that
always
real quick.
tragic. First,
It
of
doesn't
course.
matter like what I believe that got people to that moment. The loss of life is still tragic. It sucks that Renee Good died. It sucks that Alex Pretty died. It sucks that they died putting themselves in a way, in a situation that was already in a pressure plate. I said
Well,
it
and
last week. Or I said it on last episode, and
you
it's the
said it on
truth.
last episode. Yeah.
Do not let do not blindly, and I'm going to say this blindly because it's blindly driven by media that heightens a response in them and what they see. Do not blindly let your activism turn to martyrism because life is serious and it's fragile. You get one shot. Now you got a mom of kids, whether she was a great mom, whether she wasn't, whatever. Those children's lives are forever changed because their mom decided that in a blind fit of rage that she was going to do all she could to save people who have knowingly said they wouldn't do anything to help her.
Here's the thing with that Alex fellow. You show up there when you go out and get yourself a concealed weapons permit. There's certain rules you have to follow, right? And one of the things that you have to understand is that when I carry this firearm, not only am I providing myself with protection if the situation ever arose, but I also have to hold myself to a little bit higher standard because
I also have to not be provoking when I have a gun in my hand.
I have to make sure that I'm not putting myself in a situation where I am knowingly putting others in danger. What was the purpose of showing? Listen, exercise your Second
Kyle
Amendment
Rittenhouse
right.
did it. He showed up to but it wasn't the same situation. It was a pressure cooker. Just leave the firearms at home. Hold your protest. Your job. You're getting ready to go on strike. We've talked about it. Your union is going to strike, right?
Maybe. Possibly. I don't know.
But they could. But you're not going to show up and start. I look at a protest as similar to a strike. Why? It's one thing to picket. It's one thing to be loud. It's not okay to violently go after the other side in any situation. And quite frankly, ICE and the police are they're trained to show restraint in those situations when you provoke them. But when you're spitting at them, that there's quite frankly, a lot of times I've seen videos of people being spit on and they don't do anything, or cars being kicked and they don't do anything. But quite frankly, they should be arrested. They have now assaulted. They have now caused damage. But where are the police to arrest them?
I think part of the problem here is that it's not a good situation for either side to be in.
No.
You're asking law enforcement to make assumptions about these individuals when they don't know them from Adam. And you're again, both sides are heated. Both sides have a high volume of adrenaline.
But the protesters are coming with assumptions about the people on the law enforcement side.
Well, no, so but this is what. But what I'm saying is that you're putting
a pressure cooker.
Well, exactly. Both sides, your adrenaline's up, and we just discussed this. When your adrenaline's up and your heightened emotions, that's when
mistakes happen.
Mistakes, and that's when mistakes happen. And now we're seeing those mistakes happen in such a way that there are real world dire fatal consequences.
Unfortunately, it's FAFO. Again, it goes back to FAFO. Just like me. Like if I go out and I shoot somebody, I f***ed around and I found out that I probably shouldn't have done that, right? Like, there's just actions have consequences and some of them are fatal. And it doesn't make sense to put yourself in that situation from my perspective as a parent. I just can't imagine doing that.
And again, you and I have discussed this and I want to reiterate it. Go and protest. It is your right to go out and
peaceful
protest.
Assembly.
Let your voice be heard, but do it in a way that is responsible and do it in a way that is legal. And, here's the thing. You want to be on the side of the road. You want to swear at them, throw up the middle finger. Feel free.
Yeah.
You're on the side of the road. You're in a public space. You're not interfering physically. You're not getting yourself physically involved. Hold up your sign. Pull out your bullhorn. Feel free.
One of my favorite things, and it's not because I think you should ride around hitting protesters, but one thing I can't stand is when they put themselves in the middle of roads and the cars and everything else. And I was really happy to see that DeSantis straight up signed a law that said if you're in the road protesting, you're impeding the flow of traffic. You're probably going to get run over.
I mean, that's the reality. It's you have the right to peaceful protest. You don't have the right to get in my way. You don't
You
have the
also
right
have
to
the
get
right to
law
grassroots
enforcement's way.
campaign and go ahead and try to vote and change it.
That's what
But
the vote exists
don't
for.
don't cheat to change it.
I
Anyway,
think the problem
that's too
is
much.
that
That's a whole nother. Yeah.
we're starting to see the death throes of and a change in
A shift in
culture.
thought process and culture.
And you're seeing the death throes of a movement that was just not sustainable and wasn't really based on real world.
Explain this to me. What country in history has maintained in chaos? I can't come up with one that isn't probably a third world country. You know what I mean? There's so many countries that have been taken down by chaos and unruliness and open borders and just the things that they want us to do with unfortunately law and order lead to a ruly society that is not chaotic, that isn't being burned down, that isn't, can we reform our justice system? Sure. Should we look at it? Yeah. Are there things we should do? I mean, I was talking about it last night. I broke the law when I was younger. I did. But the law isn't the law now. That law that I broke is no longer a law. But guess what? It was when I broke the rule. I had to suffer the consequences.
I think that's it is when you look at so I'm about to get into the weeds a little bit here. But these are the realities.
I'm going to cut you off. Let's pause this for 2 seconds. I got to pee really bad.
Yeah, go for it. Hosting a podcast, I've spent a little more time listening to other podcasts and kind of getting a feel for like trying to learn something,
Yeah.
If we're constantly trying to improve the thing that we're putting out. And so I got to get into the weeds a little bit about something that I saw on the Whatever podcast. And it was a young woman who was basically saying that that white people have a genetic predisposition to domination.
What?
I saw. Well, yeah.
Okay.
And so, and I get where she was coming from in terms that
it's this white supremacy again.
Yeah. So here's some facts for you. Let's take 2 continents. Let's take Europe. Let's take Africa. Why was Europe globally dominant and what happened? What was the difference? Well, institutions. Okay, you got the institution of the Catholic Church that begins in the early medieval period, right? You got the Catholic Church. You've got a bunch of people whose only job is to read books. They are men who can read books and they have time to read books. And one of the things that happens when you read a book, you learn how to read and write. You can write things down. And so you have you have people doing scientific study. You have this whole thing where this institution is maintaining order. You don't have a tribal society. You have a organized society that, for all intents and purposes, is based around religion. Now, whether you believe in it or not, there's still that institution that's there, right? So you have an institution. The other thing that you have in Europe is geography. The geography. You have arable land, right? You can produce food easily. So that means that you have not just your whole culture is not based on the production of food. You have individuals who don't need to be producing food, right? Because you have this is how societies exist. I have an artisan class. I have an educated class. I have classes of people who do things other than produce food. In a tribal society, you don't have. The other thing that you have in terms of geography is natural deep water ports. They don't exist in Africa. Right? The only place they exist is essentially in northern Africa, but they're all over the place in Europe. You have deep water ports that allows you to trade, right? It allows you to have big ships, trade things. I think there is this whole idea that the people dominate each other regardless. People with power dominate people without power. That's a simple truth of the world. But Europe had deep water ports. They had arable land. They had institutions that maintained order, and that's what allowed Europe to do the things that Europe did. And so when you look at Western society and the things that has made Western society dominant for the most of written history, it's those things. And when you start to rip down those institutions, it's when you start to sow chaos. You got to ask yourself, do you like the way you live, right? Do you like the society that you live in.
Yeah.
And I don't mean the more, what's the word I'm looking for here? The more.
I think you're trying to say the materialistic side of things more so.
No, I do mean the materialistic.
That's what I'm
side
saying.
Of things.
That's what I mean. Is you're saying the more materialistic side of things and the stuff that we have versus other. It's like this, dude. But it's also, if you woke up and you were Chinese, right, and you lived in China, or you woke up and you lived in China. Okay, you were born in China.
Okay.
You're a black man in China. Everything else. You would think that China is, or that the Chinese people are dominant people. You know what I mean? So I think if you're
To
like,
some
just like
extent, sure.
if I woke up in Nigeria tomorrow
Mhm.
and I was a white kid in Nigeria growing up, do you think I wouldn't feel dominated by the black people around, the Nigerians around?
I see what you're saying.
Because you're the outlier. Like, I just think that
Right.
being a minority versus being dominant, yeah, there's more white people in America. Okay.
I don't think, I think this was a general statement about Western
White people
culture.
as a whole. I got you, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying, but you can't have that statement without talking about.
I don't even think it's a race. It's not a race thing.
No, I
It's-
know,
it's
but
a
I'm just
cul-
saying,
It's a
I think
cultural and
it's
geographic.
a cultural thing and a geographic thing. Because likewise, if I was, I'm just saying, like, if I was to make that, I could make that statement if I was born in Nigeria as a white man. I could make that statement if I was born in the Dominican Republic as a white man. You could make that
Yeah.
statement living in America because it's a culture dominated by white people, because there's white people all over America
I think it's just a
and Western
thing.
society. No, I hear you,
and
but
I don't think I think.
but you know what's
there's
not
this-
Western? You know what's
Hmm.
not a Western thing? Africa, China, India. I'm saying that, like, I think that the Western society is dominated by white people. I mean, just and at its whole, not like saying it's a dominated thing in terms of like, oh, like we rule you, or you know what I mean, or we're better than, but there's just a vastly, I mean, from Russia all the way over Poland, Germany, like Eastern Europe, coming, or Western Europe, you're looking at a lot of, or Eastern Europe, you're looking at a lot of white people. It's just predominantly a white trait, or like a white gene in there, through the UK, through
Well, it's not so
Ireland,
mu-
through.
I think you're you and I are coming at this from two different places.
No,
I
I'm just
don't-
playing the devil's advocate to the comment, because I feel like that comment could be made if we were in
I
the
don't think
alternate
that,
situation.
again, it's not. I think that comment was more about, when they say dominant, I don't think they mean it in numbers. I think they mean in terms of, like, if you look at like the slave trade, or where,
I hear you on slave trade,
or
dude,
colonialism,
people-
that all of that stuff. That's
Okay.
kind of where, that's more where I think this person was
I hear
headed
you on
with it.
slave trade, but why did Africans sell their own people into slavery?
I'm not saying that they didn't.
I'm just saying,
think-
though, so how is that you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
It's like I say, I don't think it's a numbers.
I'm
I don't
not
think they were looking at it
minimalizing
from
slavery, by the way. I'm not. I'm
no,
just saying.
no. I think this person was, at least in the way that I took the statement,
Yeah.
was more in terms of like colonial domination, like, so why did the British Empire was the largest empire that's ever existed in the world ever, out of this small island nation. That's, I think, more where they were headed with it. But to me, I think it has to do with things like industrialization. It has to do with continuity of society.
Institutions.
Right.
Duplicating, taking that society and then exploring and finding places to put
Right.
additional versions of that
think about
society.
it this way. The Europeans fought all the time, right? They did. You had France and the UK fighting, or England fighting each other all the time. You had the Prussians. You had all of these different countries fighting each other all the time. But were there mass genocides? No. You don't have to restart civilization every time you have a war. You look at what happens in Africa, which happens sometimes in Southeast Asia.
The genocides.
You have genocides.
Yeah.
You have to basically start civilization over again. And so it's those institutions that
Prevent genocide.
that essentially prevent genocide.
Yeah.
And so that's just, getting in the weeds. I don't even know if I'm going to include that in the podcast. It was just something I've been thinking about.
It's just an
interesting thing.
Well, so I'm going to leave everybody with this thought, okay? This weekend, if you hadn't heard, there's a massive, massive football game. Super Bowl is this weekend. Super Bowl 60. Did you know that? And the New England Patriots are playing in it. The New England Patriots are playing in it for an unprecedented 7th Super Bowl banner, potentially, to hang. They would separate themselves from the Steelers at this point. I gotta say, I'm gonna leave you with my prediction. I've said it. I'm gonna say it again. This is a situational football team. You want to score 40? We'll score 40. You want to ground and pound and fight it out in the trenches? We'll fight it out in the trenches. Our team has found a way to win multiple times. We're 9-0 on the road. Warriors come out and play is the motto, because we are the ultimate road warrior. We're the only team in NFL history to win 9 games on the road and go undefeated. We're going to do it again. Drake May is going to be the MVP, 24-21. And when we do this podcast next week, I look forward to celebrating it. I look forward to telling the Seahawks fans and the doubters, it doesn't matter how you win, but we won. So go Pats, stay a dude, go Pats.
Driveway, mowing lines so straight. Got a toolbox full of glory and a mortgage by the plate. I'm a modern man with a no